Big battle in the ACC, a battle of two Hall of Fame coaches, now especially with the Hall of Fame nomination first time up for Miami's coach. But this one did give the win to the Hurricanes, number 17th ranked, by the way. Hurricanes 15-3 defeat Syracuse 82-78. This was a fantastic game. Came way all the way down to the wire. Obviously, it came down to some foul shots and some missed three points at the end. For the Orange. But yeah, this was a fantastic game. Miami gets the win here. And it was a really good basketball game for the Hurricanes. They played great basketball, 41% from the field. They had three players in double digits: Omier, Pack, and Miller. Wong had 9 as well. Wong didn't play as great as I thought he was going to play. He had some fantastic games over the last few. We've seen him play some great games since the beginning of ACC play. But Wong kind of struggled in this one a little bit. That's fine. The rest of the team picked it up, kept them in this one, and got the win. What was your thoughts on this one as the Hurricanes beat the Orangemen?
Well, you know what? They're ranked number 17, and they have played their way to that ranking.
Yep.
So I think it's only fair that I take a moment to say, Feck's overrated. Because I've been chanting about Miami being overrated since the preseason.
You put it in the preview. You did.
And honest, they have just made a believer of me. I mean, they play their hearts out every game. The difference, there were two differences in this game. I think there was a more balanced attack for the Hurricanes. You mentioned all the players in double figures. Omier had 16 points, 16 rebounds. I mean, that's just, that's NBA quality performance right there. And they were 25 for 28 from the line. I mean, and it's not like Syracuse was committing stupid fouls. I mean, it's just that controlled chaos type of attack that Miami puts into play. They just drew those fouls. So if you're shooting 25 for 28 from the free throw line, odds are you're going to win any game. And that is more than what the difference is in this game here. I mean, Syracuse, they were terrific. Edwards was in double figures. Gerard the third I thought he had a really, really good game. I thought he was really solid. A little bit as far as your shooting percentage, maybe it wasn't there, but he hit some pretty big buckets. But Miami, man, oh man, they only had 11 turnovers. They're just doing everything right as far as trying to prove that all the preseason hype wasn't hype. And and congrats on that Hall of Fame nomination. For their coach. He's one of those guys that you go through all these great coaches and his name just doesn't come up for whatever reason. But then if you actually sit down and look at numbers and look at success of his players, not just, in professional basketball, but in life. I mean, he's just one of those coaches that deserve that. And hopefully that he's just nominated. It's not, they have not finalized the nomination.
Just the nominations have come out, so far. A lot of people thought that he was taking the Miami job to go and just kind of retire and right off into the sunset in South Beach. A lot of people really thought that was the case. And he's done completely the opposite of that. He's really made, since he's been there, and this came out on the broadcast, since he has been with Miami, Miami has been the 4th best team in the ACC for the entire time. And you're talking about with North Carolina there, with Duke there. I mean, that is very impressive to stay that good that long. I want to go back to Omier real quick with Miami. I think that he has been very impactful for this Miami squad. I would even argue to say that he is the most impactful transfer from a G5 to a power school so far this season. He's Sun Belt Player of the Year last year. Coming up, he's now ranked in the top 25 in rebounds. He's in the top 25 in field goal percentage in the nation, averaging 14 points a game as well. I do think that he is, and if you find somebody else in there, let me know. If you see it in the comments, let me know as well. But I think he is the most impactful transfer coming from Arkansas State to Miami, by far, coming up into the Power 5.
That's a great point, and it's, I mean, because there's so many players in the transfer portal, it's almost hard to narrow down one. But coming from the type of program, like this isn't a JUCO guy coming up or a guy coming up from Division II, Division III. He's already playing Division I basketball. Uh, Arkansas State is one of those sneaky kind of programs that you really don't think of much, but when you get a chance to watch them, it's like, wow, what was I missing here? And I mean, they're definitely missing him, in that lineup
Oh,
this
for
year.
sure.
But that was that missing piece. I always talk about playoff teams, or in the case of basketball, tournament teams needing that extra piece, and whether it be a young guy, developing and really coming of age in February and March, or somebody coming in through the transfer portal now. And I could not agree more. He had, as far as impactful, and most valuable, I would say that is the case. I mean, you could look at some of the players that Alabama's brought in and West Virginia's brought in, but I don't know that anyone really, as far as game in, game out, has had the positive impact on their team that O'Meara has.
I think my favorite part of this game was probably a very heartbreaking thing for Syracuse, but the way that Jim Boeheim handled the situation was my favorite part. I think it just really obviously just reminded me how good basketball is when you're watching it with these Hall of Fame coaches. I mean, a
Mhm.
coach that has over 1,000 wins in his career. But towards the end of the game, and it really, I think, was the turning point in this close one. Freshman guard Judah Mintz drove the lane and he got blocked. No foul, nothing happened. It was the stuff, and it wound up turning over the possession. Miami was able to get fouled and then finally get up on this one. When after he got the foul and then they're walking to the free throw line because Miami was in the bonus, he goes right over to his coach, and you could just see that they have this great relationship. And we've seen this over the years with Boheim, how he handles,
Mhm.
especially his young players, and we're seeing it again firsthand. I mean, he has a lot of freshmen on his squad this year, but especially with Mintz, I think you can just see this nice relationship, and you could tell they didn't have to even say much. It was almost like just some eye contact, like just kind of you could tell the relationship was really good, and I don't know. I just really like that moment, and I feel like next week, and when we see Syracuse again in the next game, I think Mintz is going to go off or whatever. I think you can see that some really good adjustments from him and moving forward, and I think you could tell that he absorbs that coaching, and that's just really good stuff. So I know I went on a little tangent there, but I really
No,
enjoyed that moment, and I think that was something that I'm going to look forward to the rest of the season when I see Mintz's numbers, and that could be something you could look back on.
oh, absolutely. No, I'm glad you brought that up, Christian, because it's something that often gets lost. Especially now, everybody wants to know about Kempom ratings and how many points. Players need to keep maintain their confidence, not necessarily in themselves, but in the fact that if they make a mistake, they're not going to get yanked and put to the bench. And there are coaches out there that will do that. That's their way of disciplining the player. Okay. Jim Boeheim has been doing this for, what has he been there? 42
It's been a lot.
years?
Yeah, they said in the broadcast. I think it's in the 42 sounds about right.
And the great thing about Jim Boeheim is that when you watch him in an interview, a post-game interview, whatever it is, you want to just spit at the screen. He just has that annoying, whiny kind of thing. But that's where all of the attention goes. So even if his player made a mistake or whatever it is, suddenly now the reporters are all focused on Jim Boeheim complaining about the referees. He's always doing this all the time. I don't know what that motion is, but he's been doing that for as long as I can remember. But he takes the pressure off of his players, and he doesn't care what people say about him as long as his players are protected. I mean, I think back to Dwayne Washington. He was such a fragile uh, person, but when he was on the court, he knew no matter what he did, Jim Boeheim had his back and was going to keep him out there because Boeheim believed in what Pearl Washington could do and to advance Syracuse in any game. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I think too often we are nitpicking and we're breaking down. Well, the turnover's been an issue, and why aren't they hitting their free throws, or they got to do better from 3 point. We miss the stories, and there's probably a story like this in every game. and you as viewers out there should get into that. I mean, I always say, whenever you can, if the camera is there, watch what the coaches are doing in those huddles. That right there can be a difference in the game. And maybe you can't hear the audio all the time, but just watching the reactions, how the players are reacting. Quite often the coaches are calming them down, getting them worked up. So there's so many like cool dynamics within the game. You pointed perfectly. That's what makes basketball so beautiful to watch, especially at the collegiate and high school levels. I mean, at the pros, it's more of a player centric type of thing. But in college, I mean, you see these players live and die for their teammates, and for their coaches. So I'm glad you did bring this up.
As for the ACC standings now, for Syracuse, we see them at 5-3. We do see Miami at second place at 6-2, behind still undefeated Clemson. That gave them a ranked. They're now ranked Clemson, number 19 in the nation. I think they deserve to be a little higher than that, but we'll see what happens in the coming weeks. As for Syracuse, we're going to see them take on Saturday at noon Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's towards the bottom of the ACC. However, they've had some sneaky good games. So that's a team and a game to pay attention to. I think that could be a really good game at noon on Saturday, but also at noon on ESPN. We're going to see number 17 Miami take on Duke. So we're going to see John Shire take on this ranked Miami team. We've seen Kyle Flipowski, who has been the ACC Rookie Freshman of the Week 5 times now so far this season. I mean, there's just some really good play out of this Duke squad. I know they're not having the season they'd like to have. They're sitting at 13-5. They're sitting at a 4-3 record as well in the ACC. But that's a team that you can never obviously count out. They have not lost at home yet, and Miami is going to head and take on the Crazies at Duke Center. So that's going to be a pretty good game in the middle of the day on a Saturday at noon. That's fantastic. So you can get that game in before NFL playoffs. That's perfect timing. It's definitely going to be a good one that I know I'm tuning into, Steve.
Forget the NFL playoffs. Seriously. I mean, it's going to be on
sports. My Bills are still in it. I know that I'm like, I saw
my Giants are in it, but who cares? It's college basketball season.
Yeah.
It's going to be on Sports Center ad nauseum, over and over and over again. Watch the highlights there. Focus on these great college basketball games. The game within a game with this Miami Duke is, I keep calling it controlled chaos, the way that the Hurricanes play. I wonder, does that bring out the best in a very athletic Duke team, or does it exploit some of their weaknesses and where they're going to maybe turn the ball over more than Shire would like them to do? That'll be an interesting matchup, even though it is Miami on the road. A team like Miami, if you go on the road, you've got nothing to lose, because in essence, you're expected to lose when you're on the road for the most part, if you're a ranked team, especially in whatever conference. Indoor. But yeah, Cameron Indoor is a whole other situation, right? Yeah. But so if you've got nothing to lose and you already play that kind of style, it could be interesting. I'm not saying Miami's going to beat Duke. I'm not trying to suck up to all the Miami Hurricane fans that I've pissed off all season long. I'm just saying that's something to look at, because Duke has had its moments where they seem very rattled and very lost. And that kind of surprised me, from a John Shire team. I maybe he's still working with that and getting his players, to play his style and to go from there. But this is good. It's going to be a much closer game than I think a lot of people are going to think it's going to be.
And again, that one's on Saturday, noon on ESPN. Be sure to tune that in, as that is definitely going to be the ESPN or ACC game of the weekend by far, no doubt about it. Let us know your thoughts about this game between Miami and Syracuse. What's your thoughts of this Miami team? Do you think that they have what it takes to get back to where they were last year in the tournament? And a lot of people have some skepticism on it. I know Steve had it earlier of the season, but they made a believer out of him. How about you? Let us know your thoughts in the comment description below. Hit like and subscribe while you're there. And thanks for watching SlasherU.